All right, so the way that this started was I have this app that's called Flipboard, and it tries to tell me about things that I'm interested in. And it knows that I'm interested in the music industry. And so it popped up a tile that said, the music industry is broken and I have an idea to fix it. And so I started reading the article, and it was quoting Bruce Pavitt, who I didn't know who Bruce Pavitt was. And he goes into some ideas about how to fix the music industry, and he talks about his new startup that's called 8stem. And so I downloaded 8stem on my iPhone, and I got an email from the Thunderbird at 8stem, not a real person. I mean, a real person was probably writing it, but it was probably Phil. And they said, hey, we checked you out on LinkedIn. Would you be interested in hearing about us to see if you'd like to invest in 8stem? And I said, yeah, I love it. Send me your deck. Tell me what it is that you're looking for, and I can see how I can support. And in sending me that information, that's essentially how I got introduced to Bruce Pavitt. And Bruce Pavitt, for all of you that have startups, he hit the holy grail of startups, where he started a company with $500 and turned it into a $30 million enterprise that changed the world. And that actually was his goal. His goal was to revolutionize the world. And so we're going to start by taking it back to the early 90s, or would you say the late 80s?
I think we should go back to 1967.
Okay, so we're going to start in 1967.
Let's get to the roots.
Go for it, Bruce.
All right, 1967, I was 9 years old. And I was reading a comic book. And in that comic book, there was an advertisement that said, you can earn money if you sell these customized Christmas cards. So it was Chicago, it was July, it's really hot and muggy out there, and I went door to door selling Christmas cards. And after about 40 hours of labor, I earned $40. And I took that $40 and I bought a record player. And from that day forward, I've devoted my life to pursuing music and enjoying music. And everything that I've done to generate income in my life has in some way had to do with music. Now fast forward to the late 80s, and I had, this is a long story, but I'll try to keep it really short. Anyway, I basically started a record label out of my apartment. It's called Sub Pop. It started in 1980 as a offset press fanzine, where I was reviewing obscure records that nobody else was reviewing. Hence the couple $100 investing in the magazine, and then started doing mixtapes, then started putting out records. And in the late 80s, I realized that there was this kind of this scene happening in Seattle. And I started documenting that through records. This is all working out of my apartment in Seattle. In 1988, I got a business partner, Jonathan Poneman, who came up with $20,000. And I sold him 50% of Sub Pop. This is a brand I'd kind of been nurturing for 8 years. So with $20,000, we actually, that was April 1st, right? So we're kind of in the anniversary here pretty soon. We opened the doors and we started signing groups like Nirvana, Mudhoney, Soundgarden, this group Green River, who later went on to start Pearl Jam and so forth. So with a very little amount of capital and just working with our immediate community of musicians, we were able to kind of lay the groundwork for a company that went on to become a global brand. It's going to make a great movie.
What's kind of funny about that story is yesterday when we had lunch with one of the people from the university in Vancouver Island, ultimately they asked Bruce, what is it that you do? That very simple question. He's like, I work in the music industry and I have this new business that's called 8STEM, and I work with bands. And she's like, well, have I ever heard of any of those bands? And he says, well, Nirvana. And with that, there's this pivot that happens where the conversation becomes kind of unreal. Like, you can't really explain what it's like to sell 100 million albums. So Bruce, let's talk about that real quick. Talk about the pop when Nevermind came out.
First of all, the band had gone on to Geffen Records, so we had points. We had points on Nevermind. Smells Like Teen Spirit, the single came out in October of '91. And a week after it came out, I started getting phone calls from all sorts of people. There was a dance club down the street called The Vogue. They don't play rock music. The DJ calls me up and he goes, I played Smells Like Teen Spirit, and that's the song everybody just started to rock to. A few minutes later, a friend calls me from Chicago, and he said, I was leaning out the window and a cab drove by, and they're playing Smells Like Teen Spirit. And all of a sudden, it turned on MTV, and it had gone into heavy rotation. This is a friend of mine. These are friends of mine. And it was truly a phenomenon. It was truly a phenomenon. And within a year or so, you could probably go to just about any place in the world and say, I'm from Seattle. And they'll be like, Starbucks? No, they're not going to say that. They're going to go, music, Nirvana, Soundgarden, grunge, what have you. I actually have a photo. I was down in the Amazon, and I bumped into a guy wearing a Kurt Cobain t-shirt. I've got a photo of that. So there literally was no place in the world you could go where people hadn't heard about this stuff.
So what ends up happening in the music industry is you do need to find somebody that's going to invest in you if you're an artist. And what has happened since is there's been a constriction of who makes the decisions in the music industry and which artists to promote. And so bringing Tuko into the conversation, Tuko has a company that helps artists professionalize. And so why don't we find out what it was that caused you to want to start that type of business?
Okay, so I would say at 9 years old, I actually knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a musician. When I was 15, so I'm about 9 years old, I don't know what it is. But when I was 15, I really shared that with my dad. They could tell, my parents could tell I was really serious about what I was doing. So my dad handed us books to read about the music business. That was the first thing he did. So I really went on to think that educating myself in the music industry was important. I went on to get my degree in music business in college. But I always had a passion to be the artist, so I just pursued music as an artist and didn't pay much attention to the business aspect as far as participating in it. About 2 years ago, I was working at a company in the accounting department, and I decided that that was too much of my time. And so I decided to leave there and start to study entrepreneurship a lot. And I just saw these parallels between entrepreneurship and what I was doing as an artist. And it was something that I realized that was very necessary. Just the combination of inspiration and motivation that you find in entrepreneurship and the community that you share your experiences and how you got to where you're going and how important that stuff was. And I just realized, why didn't I ever see this in the music community? Why didn't I see this motivation? Why didn't I see people kind of giving you the right ideas and how to pursue this. So when I was pursuing my music and I stopped and I started to focus on entrepreneurship, I decided that I wanted to kind of help bridge that gap. I was watching a lot of YouTube and I was learning a lot from YouTube. YouTube literally changed my life. I'm filming with that camera over there because of YouTube. I learned how to use a camera because of YouTube. I directed videos because of YouTube. So I was like, this is a place that people can really learn from. And so I felt like musicians needed something that would educate them, like other channels that they had that would educate you if you wanted to be a director or anything you wanted to do. I just saw a lack for music in that space, and that really inspired me to want to bridge the gap between entrepreneurship and musicians. So with Music ID TV, it's about education. Beyond that, I also work with artists who, I'm working with one artist right now by the name of Jizzel, who's a songwriter, and she's been writing songs for 10 years, but now she's pursuing her music as an artist. And we're working with her to kind of build her more so as an entity and as a company, rather than just an artist, and viewing it as an entrepreneur and being the CEO of her career. So that was really what inspired me, I would say 2 years ago when I started studying entrepreneurship, and I just saw the parallels. And I really didn't want artists to continue to be handed really bad deals. And I was tired of talking about that. I don't know if you guys are pretty tired of talking or complaining about something. And this is what I kind of decided to do about it.
So before we introduce Jizzel to you, Bruce, do you have any anecdotes about bad deals in the music industry?
No.
I can give one.
So, show of hands, how many people have heard of Jizzel? Anybody? So she has rapped with Kanye, she's rapped with Pharrell, she's rapped with Diddy, she's rapped with, give me more names.
Travis Scott, Chris Brown, Ty Dolla $ign, Snoop Dogg, G-Eazy. This keeps going.
Ty Dolla $ign. Have you heard of those acts?
Yeah.
Okay, so you probably have heard Jizzel, you just don't know that you've heard Jizzel. And so one of the things that I thought was really interesting upon meeting Tuko is her career and what she's doing after 10 years of co-signing music for those types of artists. And so what we're going to do is we're going to play one of her songs or it's not her song, it's a song by Lupe Fiasco featuring Jizzel, as it was on the Stephen Colbert mainstream CBS television.
They're performing Jump from his new album, Drogas Light. Ladies and gentlemen, Lupe Fiasco featuring Jizzel. Pure metals, with my role models, rolling old models, loving old schools, flowing, going gold models, flower berry, calling devils to the floor, power sharing, calling devils to the door. I already got the money, I already got the radius. These other rappers, I'ma do what I ain't do. Say, I'm a trapper to a rap, say, I'm a trapper to a rap, say, I'm a trapper to a rapper. And gonna make it happen. Shit, now this is stuff I'm talking about, stuff that I can love. You like heaters, I respect, but I still go right at home. However, when you get the paper, feel like the asses of black. Break out some of that candy and roll it up in the rapper. For a rapper, now I can never go back to trapper. I already got the money, already got the women. I see these other rappers, I'ma do what I ain't get. Trapper to a rapper, trapper to a rapper, trapper to a rapper. Now look, I like it happy.
All right. So, how many of you love music? How many of you perform music? How many of you know what stems are? What are stems, brother?
Stems are isolated tracks from music. The game rules you're set it up, and it's like the guitar only, the drum only, the keyboard only goes up.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So that brings us to Bruce's new startup, which is called 8STEM. And so what I want you guys to think about after having watched this is you have Jizzel, who's been in the business at least for 10 years, co-signing major label artists. And then you have a song that Jizzel writes, an original song that Jizzel writes. And she's going out, she's doing this project that's called 7 Days, and it's in 4 different cities. The first city is Atlanta. The second city, she actually showed up today in Denver. The third city?
It's Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, and then the 4th city is Los Angeles. And so what 8STEM wants to do, or is doing, is they are taking these songs and they're creating stems or elements of the music. And so Bruce, tell us why you think this technology is so important.
Okay, essentially, what we are doing is introducing an interactive music format that allows for creativity and collaboration. In the next month or so, we're going to have a deeper catalog of STEM samples to add to the tracks. But essentially, it allows for a deeper level of creativity and collaboration.
And why is that important in the culture today?
I think I believe I'm a dad. I believe in after observing my kids, my 18-year-old son here, who kind of lives on his phone, he's inspired by games. He's inspired by things that allow him to engage and to interact. As far as listening to music, he'll go to Spotify, press play, and then he'll go back to his games. I don't think a lot of younger people really have the same relationship with music that older generations did. I think they're seeking deeper levels of engagement. Now, all that aside, one of the reasons I'm super stoked about 8STEM, which was developed by my partner Adam Parrish back there, just want to give a shout out, is that where this project is going is you're going to be able to integrate and mash up different parts of different songs. So imagine if somebody in Cambodia downloads this, is remixing a song from Buenos Aires with remix elements that were created by a producer in Seattle. Okay? Now we're talking cultural diplomacy, right?
Intertribal diplomacy.
Intertribal diplomacy. It's not just about selling music, it's about bringing people together with a universal language and heightening creativity. That's what I'm excited about.
So Tuko, walk us through what happens for an artist when the business end of their songs.
Them selling the music and distribution?
Getting exposure and ultimately monetizing their music.
Well, I mean, digital distribution is pretty common now. Everybody knows about digital distribution. But the thing is, there's certain platforms that pay better than others. And you can distribute your music however you want to distribute your music. I mean, it's really not hard to access that stuff now. It's a lot of services that provide it. But it's just about knowing which platforms to really promote and how to optimize where your music is streaming. Certain platforms pay better than other platforms. Like, for example, Tidal pays a lot better than a lot of the other platforms. So that's something you might want to actually promote on your social media page versus promoting some of the other platforms which you won't get a return on, but it depends on what your goals are. So from a business perspective, if you're thinking about revenues, always look to the things that are going to actually give you the best revenue. But you have to educate yourself on that. You can't just, upload it and just wait back and wait and look to see what the data is and not knowing how to actually optimize and take advantage of the opportunities that you would have understanding the different platforms. So that's generally how you would generate revenue from just a digital distribution standpoint. There's also a lot of different avenues from a sync licensing standpoint, and you can get creative with promoting promoting your music. Now, making money off of music is a tough game today, just period. I do believe it is about becoming a brand. It is about being a content creator. When you think about how much time people spend on their phones and on these platforms and things of that nature, that's where you need to be. And it's a matter of content, just a song within itself. Even Bruce kind of giving the description of how his son engages in the music, he puts it on and he moves on. It's not consumed in the same way. I mean, from a photo to videos and things like that. So that's when you get creative to really expose your music, and you can find more opportunities that way. And then it's about getting exposure for it, more so than trying to monetize it, depending on where you are in your career.
I would agree with that. So all about building your brand, and most artists really make more money touring and selling merchandise. And if you can make money off of sales or streaming, it's kind of a bonus right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions for the panel?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question that ties the two of you together. So, we watched this here and we saw Jizzel. I'm assuming she's making a lot less than him.
Lupe Fiasco?
Yeah, Lupe Fiasco, is that correct?
Well, he's been in the industry longer, that could be the case.
Okay.
I don't know his body, so.
Well, I guess my question is, like, when we're talking about revenue streams, we're talking about the idea of HSTEM. Who actually owns the creative thing that comes out of HSTEM? Is it the creator? Is it the source of the STEM? How does the revenue flow throughout that ecosystem?
Well, the theory here is that the rights holder gets the revenue. So in this case, the rights holder is more than likely Lupe Fiasco, well, actually, or possibly his label. I'm a longtime proponent of independent music, started an independent label. If the artist owns the right holder, if the artist is the rights holder, they're going to be getting the cash. Anyhow, with regards to HSTEM, all the remixes that are created, that are getting funneled up to the streaming services, all of that material is owned 100% by the rights holder, ideally the artist. Now, when revenue comes in from Spotify, etc., there's going to be a revenue split between the rights holder and HSTEM. The remixer, the music fan who gets the music for free and the technology for free, they don't get a revenue cut. It's kind of an even trade, I think. Free gear, free music, you get to play with it, and you're helping generate revenue for the artist primarily.
Yeah, bro.
And then, just to go a little bit further, as far as, are you, in order for us to, okay, so never mind, that just answered my question, actually. My question was gonna ask.
That was easy.
Yeah, the licensing behind it, like, or how does that all work with all the music? Like, if we're not making any money off of it, it goes back to HSTEM and the original rights owners, and that's.
Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't matter about how it's licensed. We're not making.
Go for it, Ben.
Have you guys heard of a platform called Patreon?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think as sort of wealth distribution happens, at the very top, when we see artists making less and less money, it seems obvious that how we fund ourselves as artists, or how people fund themselves as artists, could be crowdsourced. So how important moving forward in the future do you think that these crowdsourcing platforms are going to play in creating up-and-coming artists? Because that seems like what you're saying is that basically they're creating a personal brand, right? Kind of like a Gary Vee or something like that, and they're a public figure. And so how important is it, or how important do you think it will be for future artists to be on platforms like this where they can crowdsource people who are their fans to actually pay for their career to happen?
I think it's going to be very important. One word you'll hear a lot, especially on social media and in the digital age, you'll hear community. You know, and even as an artist, you can't be exclusive of that. And if your community is really interested in supporting you, and you can actually deliver to that community something that's worth giving you money on a monthly basis to, then it's going to be very important, and it probably will serve as a main stream of income in the future. I think you can really take advantage of this.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's kind of a digital version of passing the hat.
Yeah.
Actually, so I've had music tech startup, I've done music tech before. I've done music tech before. It's not a fun or easy space. Could be really exciting.
Dude, I gotta challenge you on that. I just spent 2 hours in the spa, and I'm kicking it on the couch. Think about it. Snow shilling yesterday.
All that Totem Summit.
What did you think was so tough about your experience as an entrepreneur?
I feel like I should say that.
Come on.
Yeah, come on up, man.
Go for it.
So I built something a few years ago with a buddy of mine, very similar to 8stem actually. Maybe somebody who knows what Indie Loop is? Anybody? You know what it is? Okay, so you guys, the music tech guys, obviously.
He's
That's
over there. Who's holding stuff?
it started with me and my buddy. We were both hobbyist musicians, and we were like, okay, let's make this DAW that lives in the cloud, DAW, digital audio workstation, and simplify it, and we'll get a bunch of content and put it up here and remix, share, blah, 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 bunch of social media. No downloads, we figured out an innovative licensing model. And we went to the labels, and the labels just said, who the fuck are you? And what was really interesting, speaking from my experience, was it wasn't that you have a licensing model that doesn't make sense. It wasn't that you have a revenue model that doesn't make sense. I mean, I sat in the room with Universal, and they looked at me and they said, this is a non-disruptive revenue model. You figured out a new way to monetize content, which is actually monetizing stems. And we had these amazing conversations and emails that went on forever and ever and ever. But the problem is the rights space. I don't know if anybody knows anything about copyright or music, or copyright, excuse me, I do, was, I hope so at least.
What Tuko does.
Yeah, there you go. Because when it came down to the master recordings, it was just, maybe all technical, it's the publishing that was the nightmare. So you could have content from songs like Drake, or, which should feature 5 people, but then you realize that there's 7 publishers on this one song, and it's convoluted, and who owns this and who owns that. And so we spent so much time, I don't want to say wasted, but working with record labels who believed in what we were doing, but they have these backlogs of other people, and it's a very capital intensive space. Very capital intensive space, and it's really hard to compete when you're starting from the bottom and you don't know it. And I realized, it's just like it's the same with everything, but just going through it and living it, and just going and trying to talk to people, convince people that this is worthwhile, and talking to artists. Like I sat down with Grammy Award-winning artists, and they were like, "This is amazing," but everyone's petrified to put their name on it in the event that it fails. So you have this giant chicken and egg. I mean, we had over 100,000 users. We did a lot of cool stuff. But it's just tough. It's very tough. I'm curious how.
It is tough, but we're going to do it.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and our approach, everybody was like, oh, you're never going to be able to license anything. I'm like, sure, if you start at the top.
Yeah.
Now I started at sub top, bottom. First Nirvana show I was ever at, there were 5 people in the room. One of them was a bartender, and one of them was the doorman. So I know what it's like to start from the bottom, but I also know that if you start from the bottom and you kind of have a feel for what you're doing, you're going to keep going up the food chain. So the acts that we're onboarding are indie acts that aren't encumbered by a lot of legal paperwork, and most of the music is from Seattle. It's from the community that we're from, and that's how we start.
That's what I did one more thing. Just regards to your question. So, in regards to people willing to pay for stems, and if there is a revenue model yet, the answer is absolutely yes. Like, I've seen data from sending out emails to users who are using our platform, and it just asking them questions: would you pay for this? How much would you pay for this? And for the right content and for the right user who's a diehard fan of a specific artist, they will pay money. They will pay money for this content. They'll pay money to engage with it, and they'll pay money to use it. So that's just fun having to do.
Adam, you want to riff on that?
Yeah, hi, Adam, Bruce's partner.
He's the genius behind the genius.
I don't think we need enough to say to that right now. You keep stealing the show. In terms of revenue and revenue for artists, there is this metric that experts who are wiser than I continue to push, and that is that streaming music services are going to grow from right around $5 billion in annual global revenue in 2016 to $16 billion by 2020. So the majority of recorded music revenue, like it's not hard goods anymore, streaming has actually overtaken CDs and records and cassette tapes in some cases. And artists are making the majority of their recorded music revenue from streaming revenue sources. And those are going to go almost like 3.5x in the next 4 years. So artists who are making barely enough money to, fund their coffee habit might now be able to, buy steak. At least, we hope, over the next 4 years. So that's the getting your music to streaming music services and fractaling that music like a single song into, say, so you want a single song that gets 1 million plays, you get $7,200 on Spotify. If you get 100 million plays, you just do the math. Some people have 1 billion plays on Spotify. So it's really hard to get a song that has 1 million plays. It'd be a lot easier to have 100,000 remixes of that song that get 10 plays each. That's just 100,000 person reposting that on Facebook and 10 of their friends listening to it.
This guy is so good with his stats. I just want to point out one thing, though. I think he might have alienated any potential vegan investors with his stats.
Sorry, vegans. You're outnumbered. We eat meat.
So Adam, before you go too much further, talk about the underground remix market on YouTube and the numbers of what's happening there.
Yeah, I mean, remix culture has been around for a long time. What remixing does, essentially, is enable people who don't have the skill set to record or make music to be able to participate and create something. So, almost 0% of the global population can actually record a piece of music that you want to listen to. Really few, very, very few people do that. And so, amateurs, with their computers and phones, can take cool existing pieces of music and just put a subtle spin on it. And that's what remixing really does. So typically it's old songs that had some sort of real cultural relevance. My favorite one to use, I showed Sergio earlier today, is the next episode by Dr. Dre. The original on YouTube has just under 300 million plays, I think, today, which is a lot. That's a solid stat. YouTube stats are reliable if you're looking. And the number one remix by a guy that I know, it's a bootleg by a DJ named San Holo. He took the song, chopped it up, put some trap beats on it, made some fat synth lines, and it's got just under 200 million plays. So in the life cycle of the next episode, it's a very popular song. Dr. Dre has enjoyed 300 million plays on YouTube, translates to revenue. San Holo DJ came out, banged out a trap remix, and it's got almost 200 million plays on it. That's just one example of, there are, I think on any given day, there are something like 40,000 illegal bootleg remixes floating around on YouTube that generate about 1 billion plays a month. That's a totally underground market. No money changing hands on that yet, so YouTube's getting that rev.
Remix culture's blowing up.
It's blowing up, enabled by technology.
So Tuko, give us the time frame of a song, or give us the time frame of a brand and how they need to work with what's available to stay relevant.
Time frame, I mean, it's about building for the long term, honestly. You really do have to stay consistent. So I think it's an ongoing thing, and it depends on where you actually are. But I think it's having a clear-cut idea of what you provide, and understanding who you are, and understanding how to connect with your community and people who care about what you do. So as far as the time frame goes, it can go on and on and on if you're trying to build a personal brand.
For a song, time frame for a song.
Time frame for a song.
The relevance.
The relevance of a song. The relevance of a song it depends on if it gets picked up. If other publications start to pick up your songs, if other blogs start to pick up your songs, then it can carry on for a long time. But ultimately, people do get sick of things, so I would say I've seen things disappear in about a week, unless it has enough support to keep the momentum going, because people get excited and then they look for what's next. Honestly, when people hear a song from you, unless it kind of keeps getting reiterated by some passive way of listening to it, or you're listening to it, you're a huge fan, then you're looking for what's next. Okay, that was nice, then what are you gonna do next? Okay, I like that too, then what are you gonna do next? And then I'm gonna be at a place where I'm actually interested in you as an artist. So it can last for a day, a week, it depends on who your base is, but you really do need funding to kind of keep momentum going, or else it just dies in water.
Just to riff on that, if you as a music fan just spent a half an hour remixing the track, you're probably going to have a deeper relationship with it than if you just passively listen to it.
Yeah, and I love the fact that, you know, you gave the example of your son and how kids probably won't experience music in the same way, but that experience of buying a record and all that stuff, that engagement actually made you connect to the music. So that connection is still going to be necessary for people to really, you know, I would say be interested in music business and artists beyond just, I like your song and I'm moving on. You know what I mean? Like, we do need a certain sense of engagement, so I think that's important, and experience.
I try to explain to my son my relationship with music. In Chicago, teenager, punk new wave was breaking out. I get on the train. It's an hour, I go to Wax Trax, money to buy a new single by the Undertones or something like that, and I go back home and I just spent an entire day for one song. So I have a relationship with that song. That is a meaningful relationship. That represents an entire day. It's not just click, click, click. It's totally different. So we need to re-engage and allow opportunities for people to really fall in love with music and spend time with it.
Bill, you had a question?
Oh, it's more of a comment when Adam was speaking about artists getting revenue from streaming services. It's really the content owner, in most cases the major label or the label that they're on, that this artist is going to earn that. And that kind of segues into talking about building your brand as a musician, where you can be the one who's posting your own music on streaming services and earning the majority of the
Yeah, I think there's potentially a trend here where artists are maybe engaging with the label. Frank Ocean would be a good example. That, hey, people know who I am. I'm going to release this by myself and make a lot more money. And I think you're going to see a trend towards that.
Yeah, a lot of artists are starting to do that more and more. I think, especially artists who have names and starting to get at the end of their deals, they're starting to realize their power. And I doubt a lot of big artists are going to go back into deals. You have Frank Ocean, who released 2 projects just to get out of his deal to release another project on its own. So it's becoming a really big trend. And once you have brand power, you can generate revenue from your music, but people need to know who you are. Just period. You can't get around that.
Any other questions from the audience?
So I have a question for bringing on this panel. I know that a lot of major labels have paid DJs or producers to make exclusive remixes for artists of hit songs. You know, if you have a producer, for example, who has a big following, like a DJ Mustard, they'll get paid a premium to remix someone's music. That's their business. Because we're talking on a micro level with various users who may not have more of a social media following than anybody in this room, is part of A-Track's mandate or intention at some point to pay back some of these users who are actually creating the content? And as the artist manager, how do you feel? How do you feel about people profiting off of your artist if they work if that is something that we're not?
As far as people profiting off of it, I think that's a different territory beyond the rights owners, just because I think the opportunity for the remixers is to actually, if there's something you're interested in, you can build a volume. You can get a name in the space with what you're doing, and I think a remixer can leverage that, you know, at the wise, you know what I mean? And I think that's what their incentive should truly be, and that's what they should aim for, more so than trying to gain money from that remixing. So people like DJ Mustard actually produced original tracks. They might do certain remixes, but there are a lot of DJs who are getting into original music. We hear a lot of DJ songs on the radio now. So they're themselves are artists, and so they get more money from doing something original anyway, so that's more so where the time would be spent. But for remixing in that space, I feel like it would probably be better to try and leverage your skill at remixing to gain notoriety in the space.
Adam, you want to riff on that?
Yeah, I think it's important to know that we do user research constantly, trying to figure out what do these people want, what are their expectations, and how do we deliver on that. The expectation that somebody moving their finger around on their phone and then posting that on social media, the expectation that those people have to make money is zero. So there is no expectation, like when you post something on Instagram, there's no expectation that you're gonna get paid for that. If you repost a New York Times article on Facebook, that could go out to thousands of users and you're not participating. The idea of that as a creative exercise is really just as a tastemaker. So even with 8stem, when you're remixing music, you can go really deep and make things that are totally crazy and outside the box, but you're using elements that somebody else created, and those are the people who we evangelize and who ultimately are the beneficiaries of revenue. And so if users expected that, then we need to create some whole different technology to address that, but so far it's been nothing. But it's also important to distinguish, people who record content and then put that into there, those guys to us are content creators. And people who just take that and move it around or add effects or chop it up on the user side, those are end users to us. And most people, like streaming services, look at those people as music listeners. So we're just giving music listeners a few more tools to deepen their experience rather than expecting them to actually create content that goes into there. So it's a little bit of a reinterpretation of the traditional roles, so that now listeners can move one baby step closer to production. But really, it's fun. It's for fun.
Does this gentleman have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys could actually show us the program.
Is there an Apple TV in here? What, you want to say something? What do you?
Do you want me to show them
Yeah, she just got it yesterday and she's all fired up about remixing already. Is there an Apple TV in here that I can broadcast my phone screen to?
Do a mix.
Oh my God, I did that as your thing, hit the Founders Live thing. Here, I'm gonna pass it.
99 seconds.
In 99 seconds, it actually works. I don't know if I can, oh, I know what I can do. Here, you guys take a mic and then I'll grab it. You keep going, keep talking.
He's going to be pitching in front of Paul Allen from Microsoft in about 5 weeks, 6 weeks. So my essential point is now would be a good time to throw some money our way because
Don't wait for me, by the way. Keep going.
Well, the reason I was asking, because a lot of, like, you seem part of our life, what we do, the part of our life that we actually make money to feed that part of the life is in music. I founded a music festival when I was 21 and had a lot of artists from all over the world come, some very well known, some, just budding high school kids, give them a platform and a stage to stand on. We're still hired by people all over Western Canada. Just got hired by a show down in Costa Rica, the Vision Music Festival.
I'm familiar, yeah.
Yeah, to go, and we do lots all over the place, I can list a bunch, but.
Super awesome.
Pardon?
Awesome.
Yeah, no, it is, and like, so the people that are there, there's a whole, there's multiple layers of the culture that are interested in, the remix stuff, and lots of DJs, lots of bands trying to create a DJ sound, lots of DJs trying to create a band sound. It's like so convoluted and interesting. So, I mean, reality.
Can I ask you what event that you're organizing to have a name?
Mine that I did was called Kutanani. It was a small event, a few thousand people at its peak that I ran, but we helped build Shambhala and Master Harvest. Yeah.
Went to Shambhala in 2004?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm from Crescent, the other side of the mountain, and I've been going to the Shambhala ground since '94. Anyway, this stuff in that culture would be a beautiful thing for all the people in that moment and space because they're tuned in.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And some of the artists we work with are kind of from that culture.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to the Symbiosis gathering in Oregon. I don't know if you know about that.
I do.
That's on the rock.
Certainly. No too many to go in the mall.
Yeah, no. That's my top choice.
Okay. What about sound on the laptop? Is there sound?
Excellent.
No, I did that, but it was like, I'm gonna blast out in case there was.
Okay.
Let's see here.
So anyway, this is A-Stem.
Back to sound. So start from the beginning. Here. Pulls this on, pulls it apart from the cloud. That's some effects.
You guys should have shown this right off the bat.
Yeah, this is cool.
Masters it when you're done.
So in 1 minute, you just recreated the track and post it on Facebook or what have you. It's getting dialed. This is going to change the world. This is going to be a global phenomenon, interactive music. 8STEM investors, Adam Parrish right here.
Do you guys also have like rock tunes so you can kind of mix whatever genres on there?
Yes, not a lot, but yes. And right now, a lot of the tracks in the system are more like hip hop and electronic music. But really, I have really eclectic taste in music. My fantasy is just we got all these different genres that are kind of getting mashed up together.
So you can do like Afrobeat country.
Yes. Actually, we just Phil here just cut a deal with
Yonder Mountain String Band.
Yonder Mountain String Band, and I just signed a dubstep producer from Miami, so I'm really looking forward to that mashup.
Okay, guys. I think that's all the time. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much.